Hi, and welcome to my channel. As you can see, I have a special guest. His birthday is coming up, and I was trying to think of what I would do for his birthday. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then he can tell you what I've chosen to do.
So I'm Ron. I'm Amanda's husband. I'm an active duty Air Force chaplain, and so that's the reason why we travel around as we do. She has decided to make me sit with her and go over one-star reviews of my favorite books. This seems like something cruel and unusual for someone on a BookTube channel to do, but here we are.
Okay, so I asked him to give me a list of books, like his top 4 or 5 books. We'll see how many of them we get through, but I will say that the theme for most of these, and I guess this is just an issue on Amazon in general, but for Amazon reviews, people give one-star reviews for the product that they received or didn't receive, and not for the substance that's inside the books. I know these authors, for the most part, are no longer alive, and so it's not a big deal if their books get a lot of one-star reviews. And honestly, they have anywhere from 6,000 to like 20,000 reviews of some of these books, and maybe even more than that. And so far, 1 to 2% of them have been one-star reviews. And then out of that 1 to 2%, the majority of those have something to do with either the printing issue, they can't get the Kindle to download, or something like that. I did pick a few of them that I thought were really funny to talk about that have nothing to do with the books. But I just think it's funny what people choose to put in an Amazon review. Okay, so I'm going to read the review, and then you say what you think about it. He hasn't seen any of these. I did this on my own. Okay, this is for the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. So the first, his coffee cup, the first book in the series. So first of all, he talks about the fact that he doesn't like the version that he got in the mail. And it's not I'm saying he, but I don't know, they. They talk about the version that they got, like there was something wrong with it.
Okay.
Second, I'm not impressed with the series at all. It drags on and on. I love fantasy novels, huge David Eddings, J.K. Rowling, etc. fan. However, I was falling asleep reading this whole series. The storyline was captivating enough till about the 5th chapter of this book. These books are huge. The 5th chapter. I don't understand the fuss about Tolkien. The Hobbit was by far better, but I still would read another fantasy over that book too. I understand that he is an older author, and so his writing may come off a bit different. However, it didn't work.
So I'm trying to think with the Fellowship of the Ring. The 5th chapter is not very far in. I don't even think you're out of the Shire yet.
Right.
So yeah, it's with the Fellowship of the Ring. I mean the entire. I don't remember if it's a prologue or first chapter. I'd have to go look, but it is about the world of the hobbits, and so yes, it's very slow. It is not J.K. Rowling. It's not even so. And I'm sure you're going to get to some that'll tear him apart. I love R.A. Salvatore, specifically his Forgotten Realm stuff with Drizzt Do'Urden, and so but it is different. I mean, I love Tolkien, but action is not the primary driver of what he's doing in his books. But yeah, and I mean, The Hobbit is a kid's book and geared towards kids. No, the Fellowship of the Ring, Into the Lord of the Rings is
all right.
It's not light reading.
We have a couple more about Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay.
This one clearly they listened to it on audio, and they reference CDs. So anyway,
all right, so this is an old one.
It just straight up says horrible. I sure am glad they made a movie of it so I could understand the storyline. I had to listen to each CD about 3 times to follow it. So first of all, this person is claiming that they listened to this book 3 times.
So I wonder, though, I would love to know what they listened to, and can we see what it was that
No,
they had?
that is my other complaint, is that I am looking specifically at the Kindle Unlimited version, because, by the way, it's on Kindle Unlimited, which was also somebody's complaint, was that they ordered a copy of it and then realized it was on Kindle Unlimited, and Amazon did not want to take it back. That was not a good enough reason for them to take it back. So that was a 1-star review.
So the reason I wonder is there is a version, and I had it on tape, and only the 2 towers. I would have loved to have it all. BBC did like a dramatized version, which I think if you didn't have any clue would be hard to follow because it's voice acted. I mean, in that Ian Holm, who plays Bilbo in the movies, actually voiced Frodo in the BBC dramatization, and it's awesome. If I could find copies of it, I would want it. But I wonder, because that's not just reading it pure.
Right. So the rest of their thing said, "Thank God for the movie, because I knew some of the characters, but trying to remember the names and places and what was going on and follow and remember who was who, because after a while they all sound alike. I thought I had to concentrate too much to enjoy it, and I don't like to do that."
Fair.
So there is...
And I would agree. If you have zero reference to the world, to try to do it on an audiobook probably would be very difficult.
The same thing. I always have an issue with any epic fantasy books listening to, especially book one, because book one is all about world building, and you always get character names and world names and all of that stuff. All right, so I think this is the last one that's actually about the book.
Okay.
Tolkien is recognized for his revolutionary writing style, but the book moves too slowly, as his vivid sensory details extend the book that ultimately is about a long walk. I love the movie because it gives a better sense of the characters' emotions, but the book was too slow for me. And that was one of my complaints about it. I also hated all the songs, and somebody does talk about that later in one of the other reviews, because I read the reviews for all three of the trilogies.
But you hate excessive description regardless,
right? In any book that I'm reading.
So yes, Tolkien is the king of that, and yes, and even for me, and I love Tolkien, the songs, because of how deep they are now. Now, after having read the Silmarillion, I think I appreciate them a little bit more. But even that's a speed through section of reading. I'm not dwelling on that like I would, maybe with some of the other parts.
Right.
But that's funny.
And this is for one of the other books, either number 2 or 3, I don't remember. But it says the trilogy is all boring, with 2 R's in boring, just in case. I have read all 3 of the trilogy and a great number of other fantasy works. A great number. Right. I have no choice but to say that while Tolkien made an in-depth background of his story, that was all he did. Tolkien built a world, but he never wrote a story. I have never read a fantasy book less entertaining than these. He bores you with details. Textbooks have fewer appendices than these books. That might be true, actually.
That is fair.
The only 2 redeeming bits are symbolism and world building. However, he missed one main concept. It's all as boring as can be. Only a few obsessed people out there learn to speak Elvish. This is also, all right. You have not learned, but this is also mine. For the rest of us, he could have spent some time on an action scene and just written gibberish, because that's all it is. That is exactly right. His symbolism is certainly not deep enough to make the books worth reading either. The first and foremost reason to write any book that's not a textbook is to entertain or make a point. He makes a simplistic point and keeps you saying, "This sucks." So.
All right, so that was cruel and unusual that you pulled that one. So here's the thing about tell which one is this over here? Is this Jacob?
Jacob A.
Don't even pretend the Silmarillion doesn't exist, because the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship, it is a story. It's about the conquering of good over evil, not by power, but by the use of the least and the most unexpected. The Silmarillion, which is nothing but the world building that even I, as a huge fan, was like, wow, this is hard to get through. Yeah, don't
like
even.
It's an actual textbook. I feel like it's a textbook for Lord of the Rings. Okay, well then
it's a history book. Yeah.
Then we have 2 that are not at all about it. So the title, this lady is named Lynn, and the title of her, she gave it 2 stars actually. Okay. The title says "Not a Sci-Fi Liver." I'm sure that she means lover.
Okay.
But then her actual review says, "Don't enjoy sci-fi, ordered on my niece's recommendation." Okay, this is not a sci-fi book.
It's the furthest from sci-fi that you could ever get.
But, so it jumped out at me because it said sci-fi liver. And I was like, what is happening? So anyway, okay. And then the other one that I think might be the best one, the best review of anything, has nothing to do with the book. Okay. She gave it 1 star. The title says, "To register for an elderly person is insane." Okay. Then the actual review says, "To enter the date born, I had to click back through 71 years by month. It took an hour. If I die, you are the cause of my death." What had that to do
Okay.
with Lord of the Rings? I have no idea. I'm assuming
either.
she was trying to read it on a Kindle or trying to do something that she then
knows?
had to register, and she was blaming it on this book. So, anyway, I thought that it was fantastic. Okay.
So what will you what do I love will you skewer next?
Well, okay. Let me say this about Lord of the Rings. I probably gave it 2.5 to 3 stars. Like, it was okay. And because I did do it on audio with
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis reading it, I loved him. He did such a great job. But there is only so much you can do with constant singing in gibberish. So, yes. All right.
Of course, you could try reading a physical copy, and then you can skip over all the songs.
Oh, I would have skipped over all the songs. And, yeah,
Well, I'm just
all
saying,
of
it could be a different experience.
Okay, so we are moving to sci-fi, and another trilogy that he loves is...
Are you talking about Star Wars?
Yes.
So I love Star Wars books. I love, for those out there who are Star Wars, I loved The Legends, which was everything that started right after Return of the Jedi with a book called The Truce at Baccarat, and ran all the way through the New Jedi Order series. So just years and probably, I believe, into the hundreds of books, not including the comics. And probably the most popular of those is called The Heir to the Empire, which, if you are watching current Star Wars, is about to be referenced in the Ahsoka series, because the enemy, the main enemy of the Ahsoka series is Grand Admiral Thrawn, who actually was the main enemy of the Heir to the Empire trilogy. And so it's I'm loving so much of what Star Wars is doing now is pulling from this trilogy, and we'll see what they're going to do with it. But now you're about to just skewer it with people who don't like Star Wars.
Right.
That's what I'm envisioning. People who've read it don't like Star Wars already, and like, this sucks.
No, I don't know that there are anybody that says that. But also, I've not read this, so I have no opinion on this at all. I like sci-fi, and I like Star Wars movies, and I have read some Star Wars books, fiction books, but I have not read this particular
It's on the shelf
trilogy.
in there.
Okay. Maybe that'll be your birthday next year.
Okay.
I'll read The Throne.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to ask you to read part of this one. So I'm going to read the very beginning. All you're going to read is the quote from the book. Okay? So Zahn is widely considered to be one of the premier authors in the EU. So they are
Expanded
expanding Star Wars Expanded Universe altogether.
And that would be right. Zahn is great.
I will now give you an unedited paragraph from chapter 1 of this book. So you just read that section right there.
So I've not read the trilogy in forever. Zahn is great, and there are new books out about Thrawn that they brought Zahn in to do that writing. But okay. Let's see, where am I here?
The TIE Fighters launched.
Okay.
Yeah.
The TIE Fighters launched, accelerating away from the Chimera and then leaning hard into the etheric rudders to sweep back around it like the spray of some exotic fountain. The invading ship spotted the attackers and shifted vectors. Paleon blinked. What in the Empire are they doing? They are trying the only defense they know of against the Marg Sabal, Thrawn said, and there was no mistaking the satisfaction in his voice. Or, to be more precise, the only defense that they are psychologically capable of attempting. He nodded towards the flashing sphere. You see, Captain, there's an Elome commanding that force. And the Eloman simply cannot handle the unstructured attack profile of a properly executed Marg Sabal. Paleon stared at the invaders, still shifting to their utterly useless defense stance, and slowly it dawned on him what Thrawn had just done. That sentry ship attack a few minutes ago, he said. You were able to tell from that those were Eloman ships? Learn about art, Captain, Thrawn said, and his voice almost dreamy. When you understand a species' art, you understand that species.
Okay, then the guy says, if you can read that and not immediately vomit, you may enjoy the Star Wars EU. If not, steer clear, because most of it is worse. So I get what he's saying. Like, especially if that is in the first chapter, that is a lot of stuff that you don't know about. This is the beginning of a trilogy.
Right.
I mean, I've seen a lot of Star Wars stuff. I don't know those names and those places.
So, Paleon is a character, his captain. Elome are obviously some sort of species. If you stick with this, and I'm guessing this person did not, if you get through, what you learn is that Thrawn is a brilliant tactician, and he studies art to understand his adversary. So that's what he's saying there, is that
Yeah, I mean, I get the overall thing of what he's saying, but also, I don't like flowery words. I just want him to say it. Like,
Oh, well, then stick with Thrawn because he becomes very cutting later.
okay. How this book gets positive reviews mystifies me. Zahn has failed in all counts as a Star Wars author. His writing style is trash. In The Heir to the Empire, he repeats the phrase Han or Wedge or Mara Jade twists his or her lip, apparently, at least 100 times. So he says that phrase a lot, I guess. He has very little action in any of the 3 novels. I hardly completed Dark Force Rising, and I did so after a 3-month break of reading it because it's so poorly written. I could not finish The Last Command. It was so bad. The whole trilogy tries to be a sci-fi action political thriller, but Zahn fails miserably, adding political overtones to the novel, which ultimately causes the tedious expanse of bland characters babbling on about the New Republic politics. Bottom line, the book is terrible.
So this is the first attempt of huge world building in the expanded universe after. So the Truce at Baccarat, I think this, I would have to go look because it's been years and I don't know, but I think we had the Truce at Baccarat, which literally is in like the immediate aftermath of the explosion of the Death Star, so that the Empire and the remnants of the Empire and the New Republic come to a truce at Baccarat. Then you have the courtship of Princess Leia, which is Han winning a planet to give to Leia, and it's about their whole courtship. So this would be the first like large world building thing, and so yet it is about politics because now it's the New Republic, but Thrawn has returned and wants to gather the remnants of the Empire together and take back over.
So Thrawn is not a good guy.
No, Thrawn is a Grand Admiral in the Imperial Navy, the only alien species to become a Grand Admiral, and was out in the unknown regions and comes back after the Emperor's death. And so...
Okay. Well, one of the complaints from another one that was too involved for me to read, but it was ultimately saying that they didn't understand how Luke went from being who he was at the end of the movie trilogy to then being this, what seemed to be a junior, like... He seemed to regress in his maturity, is what they were saying, from this book or from the end of the movie to the book. And so that was a whole discussion they were having about that. But I mean, I don't know. I think it would be hard anyway to take a character that has already been developed, or multiple characters, right? That have been developed by someone else. You didn't come up with them. You didn't create them. And then you have to try to do that. So anyway, we're switching again.
Okay.
And now we're going to Dritz.
Okay.
So, I did 2 things. First of all, the Dritz, you can probably explain this better than me, but the 3 that began the thing, those are not, like, that's a different trilogy, the prequel trilogy or something?
So
like Home?
So the Icewind Dale trilogy, which is the Crystal Shard, Streams of Silver.
It doesn't matter.
I can't remember
the Icewind Dale trilogy.
The Icewind Dale trilogy was first because when Salvatore was starting to write, he had in mind Wulfgar as the main character, and as he wrote, Dritz just became the driving force. So then the Dark Elf trilogy, which is Home, Sojourn, and Exile and Sojourn, is
a prequel. So it was written afterwards.
Right. Chronologically, it would be first, but it was written after.
So he wrote the Crystal Shard first.
Yes.
And so here are some reviews of the Crystal Shard, and then I did Home, or Homebound, or Home. It's Home something. It's not just Home, but...
I think it's Homeland.
Oh, yeah, Homeland.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've read these, and I actually really like them, so I'm a little bit sad about this too, but... Okay, so I really did. Many of my friends have read this series and said it's unbelievable. I started, and I think it's utter drivel. I don't oft put books down. This is one. In fact, I threw it away so its horribleness wouldn't contaminate the rest of my collection. Wow.
I question your collection.
Wow. Well, I will say, at the beginning of this, I was confused because you are thrown into a world, and especially like now, people have the opportunity to read the first trilogy.
Well, but not just that. For people who aren't Dungeons and Dragons gamers, so his whole world is set in the world of Forgotten Realms, which is a D&D playable world in Faerun, and so a lot of people coming into that already had at least a little bit. They knew the locations and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not the
so
characters.
let me read this one.
Okay.
Too many odd names and too much gobbledygook for a story. I have better things to do with my time. I have never been a Dungeons and Dragons fan either. Maybe that would have helped.
That would have helped. I can promise you that would have helped.
That's right. That would have made it a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to... Oh, somebody also requested that somebody rewrite this book. Since a lot of people have to read it, why don't you just rewrite it and make it better?
Why do a lot of people have to read it?
I don't know. I
mean, I would recommend it. I think everything that he's done related to Drizzt and the Forgotten Realms is fantastic. I mean, there are offshoots of it that I haven't read that I know are terrific just because I don't have time to read them. But anything that he writes in Forgotten Realms is fantastic in my opinion.
Okay, the title of this one says Boo, and the review says it sucked. like that's it. That's all they had to say about it. Like, I just don't understand why you take the time to write that review as well. So
wait, that was it? That was the review?
Yeah, that's it. That was the whole review. No,
oh my gosh. I'm going to tell you, your review sucked.
The title was Boo, and the review was it sucked.
Okay,
so,
yeah, that review sucks.
Yeah. So, anyway, this has been a lot of fun, and maybe not for you.
Right,
but,
thank you for completely crushing my favorite things.
It was things that you already knew, right? Complaints that you had already heard for the most part, especially about Tolkien, because those are my complaints that I have about that.
It's the wedge that lives between us.
Right. Okay, well, next year I will read the Thrawn trilogy.
All right, we'll read it together. How about that?
Oh, okay, that'll be great. Right. Thank you for joining me.
You're
Happy
welcome.
birthday.
Thank you.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye.